Does Zoom have an automatic record and transcription program? Where is the AI note taker in Zoom?
Hello,
Okay, there we are. Very good. I see you. I hear you.
hello.
That's what counts. Okay, awesome. So we got a nice response. There should be 20 to 30 people on,
Oh,
God willing, and
sweet.
it'll be nice. It's a very important topic, this one, to let everyone.
I've been looking. Maybe you could help me find it. I looking. There was this video on Gem, and it was like the Rebbe talking to, and I can't remember what it was, but it was some other Jewish organization. They were making a huge event, and they were like, and then the Rebbe was like, "That's wonderful, but I haven't seen anything about it." And there's like, "Oh,
Oh yeah.
because
Uh,
we're not being we're being modest or whatever." And then he he goes, he says, "That's not the way it works." He says, "In America, if you don't publicize it, it doesn't exist." And then
oh
he
yeah.
says, and then he says,
Uh,
and this is the one good thing that we can learn from American culture, which is the importance of publicizing good deeds and using publicity for good deeds. I can't
uh,
find this video. I don't know why, but
Interesting. I know it doesn't ring a bell, but we got 9 people in the waiting room already. Wow, that's nine. That's great. All right. So bottom line is we'll both we'll go to mute and shut our cameras. I'm going to share a wait screen basically. And then at the 3:05, my time, 12:05 time, I'll come on and I'll welcome you. And then you'll come on and you'll take it from there. And I'll moderate. I'll be on to moderate the whole time. So,
um So you want me to shut off my camera now
Yeah.
or no problem? Okay.
So I'm basically going to start letting people in and telling them that just a few minutes to go. Yeah, what am I doing?
Oh, I think I found it. I found it.
You got to mute yourself. So I hear your.
Yeah, I found the video. Haha.
But I'm saying mute yourself also because people there's noise and people. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for coming on time. It's now 3 o'clock exactly. We're going to give just a few minutes for everyone that registered to sign in. So we'll start at 3:05 Eastern Time. You can see it on the clock. We're counting down. So welcome. Thank you for coming on time and hang tight. Once again, welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming on time. This shows that this webinar is important to you. Be here on time. It's now 3:02. We're just going to wait 3 more minutes, allow for people to join. So hang tight. We'll be starting shortly. Once again, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming on time. It is now 3:04 Eastern Time. We're going to wait just 1 more minute for more people to sign in, and we will begin the webinar in 1 minute. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Excited that you could all be here with us. It's a special webinar today. Before we begin, just a little bit about CHYE. CHYE and its Level 8 mentorship program is now in its 14th year of service to the Crown Heights Jewish community and the greater Jewish community, offering free and low-cost business services to help entrepreneurs start and grow their businesses. We do this through our one-on-one mentorship program alongside a wide range of educational and business support initiatives designed to help people move forward from where they are. We recently completed our annual report, and I'm excited to share that this past year we've engaged with 1,377 entrepreneurs across all of our programs. Today, it takes approximately $550,000 annually to fund CHY's work. We're deeply grateful to the many supporters who make this program do what it does. For those of you looking for business mentorship after this webinar, please visit chye.info and follow the mentorship request form, and we would love to service you. Without further ado, today's webinar is on a very timely topic, okay, and that is the art of personal publicity. In today's day and age of social media, the growing trend of influencers and influencer marketing is just exploding. And anyone that runs a business, and especially someone that runs a service-based business, it behooves them to learn how to present yourself as as a thought leader and as an influencer in your industry, just to grow your business. And I couldn't think of a better person to present today's webinar than Justin Yoel Oberman. I met him last year when we did our annual Los Angeles Huddle event, and he ran a roundtable on this very topic. He is an expert in this field. It's something he dedicated his life to. He is yes, to read his bio, he has spent his career studying how meaning moves from one person to another through advertising, through AI, and through a marriage he almost lost. He works with many companies and brands as a marketing consultant and copywriter, helping executives build personal brands through Oberman and partners. He writes about advertising history, the philosophy of language, and why just be yourself is a terrible advice on LinkedIn and on his Substack, Overthinking. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Justin or Yoel, however you'd like to be known as. And the way that this works is the presentation is 40 minutes long, and then we'll follow it with a live Q&A. You can post questions in the chat. There's a chat feature, and you could type your questions. I'll be monitoring the chat. And if there's something important, I'll bring it up to Yoel as he presents. Otherwise, save your question for the Q&A at the end. We'll leave plenty of time for that. So without further ado, the floor is yours. No, you're mute. I don't hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Okay.
much for having me.
There we go. Heard you
It's a
fine.
real pleasure to be here, especially with this crowd. And I always like to start off like by saying, like being very cognizant of the crowd. And, obviously I work with everybody, but whenever I'm speaking to an Orthodox Jewish crowd, you know, because of the topic of what I'm going to talk about makes a lot of people uncomfortable. The whole idea of advertising and publicity for their business, that's enough. The fact that I have to do it for myself seems like I'm being very egotistical and very showy. And don't worry, I will actually calm your fears about that to show you that things like showmanship and whatnot don't have to be. Uh, it's not about like being like P.T. Barnum and shaking your hands and razzmatazz, although maybe that's what you may have to do or not. But in general, when I'm speaking to in general Orthodox Jewish crowds, I always like to show them this video of the Rebbe that I discovered a long time ago, which also resonates because then I also like to point out, like, okay, if you think about it, in Judaism, right, like in Orthodox Judaism, you have Chabad. What is Chabad? Chabad is a lot of things, but a fun way of putting it is also is Chabad is Hashem's advertising agency, right? And the creative director is the Rebbe. And but in this particular video, which I put the link to in the chat, so you can watch it afterwards if you want to. You can watch the whole thing or skip the main part is towards the end They're talking about, celebrating the finishing of the Talmud and whatnot. And the person's talking about, oh, we didn't really, the Rebbe's like, I didn't see any announcements or anything. And he's like, yeah, well, we're being humble and we're Jews. We don't like to brag. And the Rebbe said something which I thought was actually pretty shocking. He said, in this country, in America, if you don't publicize it, it doesn't exist. And he goes in America, they call it advertising at the time. That was the main term for it. And then he says something that's even more shocking, which he says that, and he says that is the one good trait that we can learn from the American culture, which is the l- American culture's love of publicity, but not just of publicity, but of publicizing good things. Because when you think about it, 90 to 100% of advertising and marketing is more or less advertising a good thing. Here's a product that you can buy to solve your problem. And it's also helping the people, right, who are selling it. It's helping them put food on the table and hire people, right? In and of itself, it's a noble task. So if you have any qualms at the end of after this, I strongly suggest you watch that video. And then, also think about it and think about, like the Rebbe himself and how he would use a lot of the tactics. Um, Not saying that he would use these tactics. You understand? You'll see a lot of similarities in the things that he did. I mean, there's a reason why he called each one of these things campaigns, right? Like an ad campaign, fill-in campaign, etc. So,
So before
um,
you jump in, maybe what we
yeah,
should do just by raise of hands so you could get a sense of who's in the crowd over here. For those of you that are business owners, just if you don't mind in the chat feature, if you could just raise your hand so we could get a sense of how many business owners we have here. Okay, I see one hand so far. Don't be shy over here. You could raise your hand. How many of you are responsible for marketing in your company? If you could raise your hand if you are respond again, if you just go into the chat feature, there's
could
a
be a lot
place
of
where you
solopreneurs too.
could. Yes, if you're a solopreneur, raise your hand. Just give us a little bit of a perspective. Okay, so we have three hands up so far. Okay, back to you. Go ahead, Yoa.
Okay, no problem. So I just want to dive in, right? And because what I'm going to share is that I want to dive in and I want to talk about because chances are a lot of you have been trying, right? Either you haven't been trying yet and you have this block, or you've been trying to build your personal brand, say, right, on LinkedIn or on some other platform, and it's not working. And the reason I'm going to tell you right now that the reason why you're not getting the engagement and opportunities you want is because you either haven't found your voice yet. And the reason why you haven't found your voice yet is because you really haven't discovered your story. And when I talk to people who are struggling with building their personal brand and using their personal brand for their business or for themselves or whatever, they constantly mention three obstacles. They don't know what to write about, right? Or talk about, or they don't know how to write, or they don't have time to write. But I'm telling you right now that these aren't three separate problems. They're actually all symptoms of one sort of fundamental issue, which is that you haven't discovered what your story is, and you also don't really kind of understand what personal branding is. And it's not your fault because most people today who are in branding, regular branding and marketing themselves, don't really understand what it is. Um, so what I want to do now is I want to dive into sort of like the three fatal flaws really quickly of personal branding, right? And so fatal flaw number one is the misunderstanding of what a personal brand is. You see, because most people don't understand these things because we've lived in a sort of anti-branding marketing world, which has been dominated by direct response for 15 years. And building the art of brand building sort of has been lost. So I'm just going to give you a very quick definition of a brand. A brand is an impression in people's minds that influences their behavior. If you want to, if you look at Chabad, for example, as a brand, right? When people are brought into it and they start engaging with it with more, right? You could very much say that Chabad creates an impression in people's minds that begins to influence their behavior. And, at the heart of every great brand is a story. So I want to tell you an example of this. The other day I went to Walgreens, and at Walgreens, I bought Tums and Tinactin, right? Um, for stomach ache and for athlete's foot. Now, these are brands that I hadn't seen in probably like haven't seen ads for in probably decades. But the reason why they work is because they've spent, but the reason why 10 years later I'm still buying Tums and Tinactin is because they spent years burning an impression into my brain using the most powerful medium on the planet, which advertising and marketing medium on the planet, and still is the most powerful advertising and marketing medium on the planet because of this, if you think about it, which is television and TV commercials. Tough actin, Tinactin. I can't, I bought Alka-Seltzer and Tums, right? Alka-Seltzer, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, whatever release it is. I can't believe I ate the whole thing, right? Right. And those impressions still influence my behavior today. The problem is that people think that a brand is just a visual identity or clever messaging, and they focus exclusively on sales tactics. But if you think about it, that's sort of confusing the outcome with the process. The number two flaw when it comes to brand building a personal brand, is also a result of not understanding how brands are actually built these days. Because even when, because um, the major flaw is that people think that to build a brand, you need to strategize before taking action. Um, Especially when it comes to your story. So gurus will tell you, for example, like online, they'll say, map out your personal brand before doing anything. Find your pillars, your brand voice, your red ocean, and then find your blue ocean, or find your niche of your, forget about your niche, find the niche of the niche of the niche. And you could say like, okay, I'm a web developer for veterans that are paraplegic. Like, okay, yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. And if you talk about that, you'll probably be the only person talking about that, but that's too niche and that's not all of who you are. But more importantly, that's not how brands are built. This is not how brands are built. This is terrible advice. And it stems from a psychotherapy and therapy influenced culture. It stems from this idea that we have to sort of find ourselves before acting or doing anything. There's a sociologist by the name of Richard Sennett who wrote this amazing book called The Fall of Public Man. It's a little bit academic if you want to read it, but I read it for you, and I'm going to basically explain to you what he says. He basically points out that before psychotherapy became like sort of like a mainstream thing in the 1920s, just 100 years ago, people simply had the way people viewed themselves was in a way that where they simply had two lives. They had a public life and a private life. And everyone kind of understood that when you were out in the street, your public appearance was a show. And there were like actually it was a very healthy, you might think, oh, that's very inauthentic, but it was actually a very healthy society because when you know that I'm putting on a show, I know that you're putting on a show, we all know that we're all just putting on a show, right? So it becomes like who's putting on the better show, right? Or it becomes you realize that you start learning in public, right? The way that you're going to become better, the way that you're going to make your public self better, the only way to make your public self better is in the real world, acting and interacting with other people. This is why things like etiquette, like Emily Post etiquette, um, used to be such big things in American culture, opening doors for women, standing up when a woman enters the room, right? This is why kings had such uh, um, elaborate ceremonies, right? Uh, involving things because everything was a show. This is why Shakespeare says, "All the world's a stage, and we are all merely players in it." That it was not just that he wasn't just being poetic. That literally was the sentiment. But today, because of psychotherapy, we think our public and private lives must be identical, right? And we think, okay, well, before I get a job or before I do this or before I go out in public, like I'm always needing to like sort of search and find myself first. Or we say to ourselves, well, I don't like the inner me, or people are not responding to me well, so I need to change myself. So before they do that, I have to go inward and I have to sort of change that, right? But if you think about it, what do even the therapists say about where that inward and how your inward self was made? It was made by external forces, right? So really the best way to change your inner self even is by changing your external environments. And, right? There are Torah concepts about this and stuff like that as well, from my understanding. But the main thing that I want to get across, and if you just get across one thing from me today, it's this, that the only way to build your personal brand is to start using it. Because that's actually the way that themselves were used to be actually built. And I'm talking about brands like Tums and Tinactin, Alka-Seltzer, Apple, etc. Right? Again, the only way to change is to do things differently, and thinking and planning about your personal brand or whatever really is going to accomplish nothing. The sort of discover yourself first mentality that's it infiltrated marketing around the 2010. Brands were built, brands used to be built by having great products, great services, or great ads. Then what happened was that branding agencies appeared, making it a quote unquote science you had to figure out before doing anything. But that's actually not how brands are built. And you probably cannot even name a brand that was built by doing those things first. The way brands used to be built, I'm going to give you three examples. So Avis, anybody here has like rented a car from Avis? So for the longest time in the 1960s, Avis was the number two car rental company behind Hertz. And in the 19 and they went to an ad agency, DDB, which created a famous campaign for them, which is "We're number two, we try harder." Okay. This became it was so, the campaign was so successful, it became their brand for 40 years. They didn't determine they were underdogs through a brand exercise. They just used advertising and created right. They just used advertising, the ads worked, and that became their brand. That's how all of the brands that you are familiar with today came about. Steve, Steve Jobs actually hated the word branding because he felt that brands were about authentic stories, not artificial positioning. And he named Apple, the way he came up with the name Apple is he had just come back from an apple orchard. He had a $100,000 check. They needed to form a company. He needed a name. So he said, why don't we call it Apple? I like the way it kind of doesn't has nothing to do with computers and how it also puts us in front of Atari in the phone book, right? Now, go to a branding agency that's going to charge you $100,000 to do the exact opposite, more or less. And when Phil Knight first saw the Nike logo, which he paid $70 for from an art student, you know what he said? He said, I don't like it, but it'll grow on me. The point is that brands aren't built by strategizing about what your brand is. A personal brand isn't something that you plan before acting, right? And and it's some it isn't something that you perfect before sharing it. The only way to discover your personal brand is to start using it. And as you'll see later, what I'm going to say is the way you start using it is through is through personal publicity. So using uh, the third reason why most people fail at building personal brand is because they um, whoops, sorry, I just
Do you want me
scrolled
to
by.
share your document for them to see?
No, I'm reading. I don't have a um I don't have a slider. Um, it's sort of too distracting. Um, the third reason
I'll
why.
just putting it up for a second so they could see it behind you. One, two, and number three here.
Oh, okay.
I'll take it down in a minute.
Yeah. The third reason is um, that basically people confuse personal branding with hard sell tactics. They're teaching salesmanship, not brand building, or like direct response, right? Hard selling tactics, don't get me wrong, hard selling tactics have their place, but they're unfortunately very unstable for brand building. No major company, no major company uses direct response or performance marketing to build their brand. That would actually be a huge mistake because those tactics are not built for that. Those tactics are built for creating immediate sales. And to do that, it requires you to be always on the offensive, always pitching, always chasing, and exhausting, which is becomes exhausting for you and your audience. And you see this pattern on LinkedIn or on other social media platforms all the time. A guru discovers a tactic that works, gets results for a few months, packages it into a course, and by the time people implement it, the tactic is losing effectiveness. Then they announce a new tactic because the old one is dead. And the followers just keep chasing the next big thing, but nothing ever gets, sort of done. Another reason why hard selling tactics get in the way of your ability to build a personal brand is that they eventually just become obnoxious, right? People get tired of being sold to constantly and they begin to feel manipulated and wonder, how can I trust this person if they're always selling so hard, right? There's a word for this that I love called verisimilitude. Basically, it's the appearance. It says that the appearance of something being true is more important than it being true. Now, this isn't saying to lie. It's just saying that, for example, if I'm going to sell dishes and I use the word new nostalgia, buy my new nostalgic dishes. Now, technically speaking, there's nothing wrong with the words new nostalgic dishes, right? In fact, nostalgia implies that these dishes are new, they just harken back to another time period. But there's something about seeing those words new and nostalgic together just rubs me the wrong way and doesn't appear true, right? And then makes me kind of doubt everything else. Another example, something probably all of you have experienced at some time, is very simply you get a letter in the mail and it says, important document for the person in this home, personal letter. You open it up and it says, "Dear home user, hey, dear resident, dear whatever." And it's like, now that in that letter could be the single most important thing that you've ever read in your life. But a lot of you are not going to read it anymore because that appearance of truth has been destroyed. Um, so what also makes sort of hard selling tactics problematic for personal branding is that it focuses on very hyper targets overreach. And the gurus will tell you not to focus on large audiences or whatever. But the counterintuitive truth for this, unfortunately, is that fame matters. Um, when Google launched Google Ads, they brought in a TV advertising executive who told them that you're killing the magic. And they were confused by this because they thought, isn't targeting the right people like the only thing that I need to do? And his response was, you don't understand. In marketing, there's magic in the waste. And when you think about it, he's right. Because when you're known, the more people know you, advertising is like a casino, right? Except it's a casino with very good odds. You're allowed to count the cards, you're allowed to see the dealer's hands. And the more famous you are, the more well known you are, the higher chance you have of getting lucky and the more opportunities open up for you. If Brad Pitt wants to eat at a certain restaurant tonight, he's going to eat at that restaurant tonight because he's Brad Pitt. So impressions matter more than people think that they do. The other problem with hard selling tactics is that they're designed for low ticket offers, right? Creating like a sort of invisible ceiling on what you can charge. When you think about luxury brands like Rolex, right? They never use countdown timers or bright yellow highlighting or PDF bribes, right? Premium position, premium positioning requires premium presentation, right? You don't sell a Ferrari like a Camry. High ticket offers demand relationship and trust. So a $27 ebook is low risk, but a $5,000 consulting engagement requires clients to believe in the entire approach. What I'm trying to tell you here is that a lot of people don't think about it this way, but the way that you sell has more has a large the biggest influence on how people perceive your personal brand than almost anything else does, right? And so what I want to teach you is how basically instead of um, instead of uh, instead of uh, you can go out into the world chasing butterflies with a net. What I teach and what I do for my clients is to build a garden that makes the butterflies come to you, so then you can sit there with a net and catch the right ones. You still need to do the catching, don't get me wrong. It's just much easier when the right ones are coming to you.
All right, so if I just being mindful of the clock, so we have
Yep.
15 more minutes now. We got to, let's, if we're going to pace ourselves to cover you have the 10 things you want to cover. Just be mindful. We have about
Yep.
15 minutes.
Yep. So what I want to jump into right now is basically the how-to. So as I sort of mentioned before, the you don't build a personal brand by using direct response performance tactics. You don't do it by focusing on um, how to write the hook, how to steal other people's content and make it your own. Um, and of course, AI becomes a sort of like almost crutch for this because if you don't have a personal brand to begin with and you use AI to try to build your personal brand, all it's going to do is amplify the fact that you don't have one. But if you, right, because all technology is an extension of yourself. And so if you don't have that sort of public self already, you're going to be sort of extending nothing. Um, the way to build this personal brand, so the way a brand builds a brand, as we already mentioned, is through advertising and sometimes through public relations, but mostly through advertising. The way that a person builds their personal brand is through personal publicity, or in other words, showmanship, right? Most people teaching personal branding aren't really teaching you how to build a personal brand. They're teaching you how to become a good salesperson, right? By teaching you hooks and algorithm hacks or anything that they can do to get short-term goals that you're aiming for. Don't get me wrong, the best salespeople are sometimes the best showmen and vice versa, right? But um, what you really need to do, right, um, is learn how to garner attention, right, in the same way that people like Salvador Dali, Andy Warhol, and a lot of the other maybe gurus and whatever people that you follow online who are teaching you the hard sell tactics. But when after this, you'll begin to see what they're really doing, right? So here are the basically 6 to 8 whatever components of this personal publicity approach. The first is that you need to start thinking of yourself and making yourself appear as news. The reason for this is that first impressions are critical. If your audience first sees you in the context of, say, like an advertisement or as a salesman, right? Or, or in a LinkedIn post written in a sort of hard selling, obviously templated style, you instantly join the mass of other salespeople screaming for attention. Everyone knows that these types of posts and whatever are artful manipulations, right? And full of deceptions. And the same goes with ads, right? You don't necessarily want, from a personal brand perspective, people's first interaction with you to be through an ad for the same reason, unless, of course, the ad is a soft sell, like Super Bowl ad, right? Type of thing that's built for brand awareness purposes. To make this work, you need to conceal your real purpose to sell yourself at all costs. So for your first and for a majority of your appearances, your post should predominantly be always manufacturing an event or a situation that people on LinkedIn will pick up as if it were news. People think that the point of social media is for you to be broadcasting a message and a lot of people to like that message. Sure, that's great. But that's not how the people at the top do it. You'll notice the people at the top, you usually discover through other people talking about them. The real goal of social media is to have people talking about you. That's why I always like the Benjamin Franklin quote that you can either write things worth reading or you can do things worth having other people write about, right? This could involve, for example, commenting on the news and thereby associating yourself with it. It could involve reposting what somebody said about you in another post or somewhere else, or it could simply be a post about something you did or are doing, right? And it works better because people pay more attention to what's broadcast as news because it seems more real. And as news, you suddenly stand out, if only for a moment.
Can I
But
can
that
I
moment,
interject you for a
yeah.
second out of curiosity? So in other words, for those of us that are on LinkedIn frequently, and there's a lot of people now that become like LinkedIn gurus, constantly writing articles and like making commentary. So you're as a way of becoming like a subject matter expert. So is that you're saying that they shouldn't do that? Like in other words,
No,
don't
you
generate.
you you can do that, but most of those so of course, one of the ways of doing that could be things that you do off platform, and I'm a bigger fan of doing that. But it could also be based on stuff that you do on platform. But if you do it on platform, you have to be shocking. You have to be writing posts that get other people talking about you, right? And that's what those gurus do a really damn good job about. And they tell you, they tell me all the time, you can't even track that. Like but they but oh, so and so mentioned you and so mentioned you and blah blah blah. Like, they just know because business is coming in, right? You want people talking about you. You don't necessarily want to be the one talking. Isn't that easier, by the way? Just like I do things and people talk about me and I get business from it, right? So you'll notice that that's what the gurus are doing, right? If you don't want to take that approach and be controversial online, then you need to do things offline that get people talking about what you did, right? As news. So that's what
Do
I
you have
mean by as news, right?
do you have
Because
examples of that? Mhm.
oh, uh examples of the offline one, you
I'm
mean?
sorry. Yes, which means, in other words, because I'm on LinkedIn quite frequently, and I'm seeing tons of these new age influencer types that are always on giving their perspectives and so on. So it's how would somebody do something offline that would get them online if it wasn't through major media?
Well, for example, what a lot of people are doing now, just on a very simple level, I mean, it could be that you do a stunt. You have a store, you put out a funny video, on YouTube, or you do practical joke, or you do something amazing, you give away a lot of money. I mean, Mr. Beast, people don't watch Mr. Beast because he creates amazing content. They watch Mr. Beast because he does amazing things and he turns that into content. Mr. Beast's shows, at least in the beginning, were like news, right? He'd go out and throw $100 million on this, or on this, or on this, or on this. People like watching the money and they like watching this, but it's more about what he did, not about what he's saying or doing, right? He could have just talked about how important it is to do these things, but instead he put on a show. He's a showman. If you want to say, I think that Mr. Beast is today's P.T. Barnum, right? He understands the importance of putting on a show, right? Because again, like if or what other people are doing is they're writing Substack newsletters. I write Substack newsletters, and then I hear about them being quoted all the time on LinkedIn. And sometimes people don't tag me or this or that or whatever, but tons and tons of people are talking about them. So it doesn't have to be always like an extravagant thing. It's just, again, you want to just sort of shift the focus where it's like the stuff that I'm sharing is news. It's not, um, it's not, uh, just like, 5 steps to this. And if it is 5 steps to this, then the 5 steps to this have to be like, what did you just say? Like, what? Like, whoa, and then that in itself becomes news, right? So you either want to be reporting the news or you want to be doing things that create the news. I prefer to do things that create news, like the old school Hollywood publicist, right? Who knew how to like just have fun, and in a way, Chabad in a lot of fun ways. Like just like if you think about, I'm gonna light the menorah outside, in public, that created a lot of news, right? So it's the same sort of mindset.
Hmm.
Because again, if you only get one thing out of this, it's this. Don't focus so much on writing things worth reading. Focus on doing things worth writing about. And this is a big mindset shift for most people, right? Like your goal of building a personal brand on social media is not to get people to like your post or engage in your post. Your goal is to get people creating posts about you. Your goal is to have people talking about you. Your goal is to do things so interesting or say things so interesting that people can't help but share what you're doing. And sometimes that can be about the kind of post you post, but the better and easier way is to get out in the world and do cool stuff. And most importantly, to create great work, right? Really quickly, because I know we have like 4 minutes, so I'm just gonna
Eight,
like,
8 minutes will be a cap if you want to go
okay,
through it.
fine.
But yeah.
So is stir the third thing you want to do is you want to stir basic emotions. Everything you post on social media should have the aim that people get something out of it. Now, the gurus will tell you that this something has to be something educational, having to do with what you're selling. In other words, that it has to be rational. And while this is true, some of the times, most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, you should just avoid promoting your message through rational and direct arguments because rational arguments require efforts from your audience and won't get attention. The famous story, right, about like, do you educate somebody about putting tefillin on, or do you just walk up to them and put tefillin on them? One of them is an emotional experience, and one of them is a rational experience. Right. I think there's that famous story about the guy who said, "Ah, you can't put tefillin on people. What if they're unclean?" And I forget who it was. And the rabbi was like, "Okay, fine. You clean them, and I'll put the tefillin on them." But like the main point is like that impact. Like the Rebbe understood the importance, right? That creating that emotion. It's not necessarily anything practical, right? Just the emotional experience of, hey, your great great grandfather did this. Whoa, they put it on for the first time, and we all know we all know that it changes people's lives in one way or another, right? The next one is, and this one gets a little confusing, but to make the medium the message. So, have you ever noticed how basically the same exact message hits completely different depending on where you see it, right? That's because there's this philosopher, his name's Marshall McLuhan, who coined the phrase, the medium is the message. Basically, if you think about it this way, a commercial that works perfectly on TV will get scrolled by really fast on social media, um, because the medium changes how our brains process information. So when I'm watching TV, I'm in a passive consumption mode. So I'll give a slow building house tour commercial a chance. But when I'm on Instagram, if you don't grab me in zero point 0.5 seconds, I'm already looking at someone else's vacation photos, right? So this explains everything about why personal brand branding is so platform specific because your carefully crafted words, they're actually the least important part of your communication. People are seduced by your visual aesthetics, the colors you choose, how you frame your shots, the pacing of your content, the type of words you choose, the tone, all of it, not just the message. You I have a friend, he's a coach for men, and he said to me, "Why do you think my content does so well?" And I said, "Because you're handsome, you're charismatic, and you work out. And the men want to be like you, and the wives want their men to be like you." And he was very offended by this. He's like, "I think it's because my message is clear." I'm like, "Your message is the same as everybody else. You just That's what gets you attention, and don't be ashamed of it. Use it so you get the attention, and then, it's okay to get people to do the right things for the wrong, for the right, the wrong. So take care to people to do the wrong things for the right reasons, or something like that, right? People buy a don't buy pe No one buys a Tesla to save the environment, but after they buy the Tesla, they become much more environmentally conscious, right? Type of thing. The next is, you want to speak your ideal customer's language. So you are your audience's friend. You need to enter their spirits, and they will relax and listen to you. So at all costs, and this is not going to be new to anyone who's ever been on Slocum or anything like that. You want to avoid appearing superior to your audience. Literally any hint of smugness or use of complicated words or ideas or statistics are fatal to this type of connection. Instead, you want to make yourself seem equal to your targets. Even if they're cynical, you want to be cynical about things too, right? And the sixth thing is you want to talk about what you believe in and what you don't believe in. Content isn't king. Controversy, and unfortunately, is. People want to see your passion about something. They want to see you saying this, don't do this, don't do, they don't want to see somebody who's just in the middle and saying that everything's important. And lastly, you need to stop telling people who you are, and you need to start telling people who they are. Your image shouldn't be seen as an advertisement, but as part of an atmosphere on the platform. So it's always unwise to engage individuals or the public in arguments because they will resist you. And so instead of trying to change people's ideas, what you need to do is you need to try to change their identity and their perception of reality. This is going to sound very manipulative, but you will have far more success in the long run. To do this, you can't tell them who you are. You need to tell them who they are. You need to create an image or an identity that they'll want to assume, like the Marlboro Man. I want to smoke Marlboros so that I can be like the cowboy. You want to make them dissatisfied with their current status by making them unhappy with themselves. I'm not saying that most shluchim do this, but most shluchim do this. And this gives you room in a good way, by the way, not in a bad way. And this gives you room to suggest slowly a new lifestyle, which is what forms people's identities. By doing this, you will make them feel like only by listening to you can they find out who they are. At the same time, you want to change their perception of the world by controlling what they look at. So as I mentioned above, get the message across as much as possible. Don't just use organic LinkedIn. Use all their tools, create newsletters, paid ads, DMs, do things offline to get yourself talked about online, and as many as media as possible in order to create a total environment around them for their perceptions.
So if I could, I want to try to bring what you're saying to life to a certain degree.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm actually going to call on. I see my brother is on here, Shanera Wordy. You could, if you're there, unmute yourself and put your
By the
camera
way,
on.
I'm much better in question answer.
Okay,
So
good. And we're gonna twist. I hope this is gonna stir interest by people to do some Q&A. But my brother, I've been watching him. He's been using LinkedIn. Sorry, this is Shanera Wordy. Shanera Wordy is a product designer. Okay, he designs products for companies. cups, plates, spoons, whatever. And he's a product engineer, but he's been on LinkedIn. How often, how many times a week do you post on LinkedIn?
My goal is 2 to 3 times a week, if I can.
Okay, so right, so and you're trying to make yourself a subject matter expert.
Correct. Yeah, I try to share information about
And,
product design
and
and
how's that working for you? First, have you found, is it bringing you leads?
it definitely gets a lot of interaction, and it brings in impressions. It has brought me leads. Yeah, I would say it brings me leads. It's not, I don't have clients reaching out to me directly from LinkedIn saying, "Hey, I saw this," yet. But again, I think it's also the long game there. So I'm building kind of that information base so people can think about me when they think about product design.
So what would you, Justin, what would you tell him based on everything that you said today? Like, is this what he should be doing? Or in other words, is what you're in other words, again, I think of my brother because I see him on LinkedIn actively trying to build an audience to drive clients to him. Is that following your principles or not?
Are you in Miami?
I am in Miami. Yeah.
This is you? I don't know. I
You're
can't.
on LinkedIn. Yeah.
I'm trying to find your LinkedIn account. Oh, there you
Yes,
Yeah.
are.
he's on.
Share wording.
I found you. I found you.
Yeah.
Okay. 2,000 followers. Good. Um, Look, you got a lot of things, you got a good avatar, good pictures, headlines. You're doing all like the sort of guru tactic, so which by the way is important. Not saying that it's not important, right? You're making videos, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
I want you to think about um the following. As a Here's the problem with, especially in the design world, with AI, with everybody having the same access to the same tools, right? The only thing that really matters is who's behind them.
Hmm.
But even more so, the only thing that matters is who puts the better show on who's behind them, right? Even there. So what can you do? Not what can you say? What can you do to very simply get more attention? P.T. Barnum was very good at this, by the way. Like he's the king of personal branding. I strongly suggest people go buy the autobiography of P.T. Barnum and read it. You will learn everything that you need to know about advertising, marketing, personal branding, because he would put his face on everything, right? He's the America's first first made self-made millionaire, and during his lifetime, he was the most recognizable person in the world. And today, we still talk about him, right? People don't realize this, though, that he was actually extremely religious. He was an extremely religious person. And you would think, well, how could the king of humbug be an extremely religious person? Because he had a principle, which is that it's okay to trick people. It's okay to humbug people. It's okay to do whatever you need to do to get attention for the thing that you're selling, provided that the thing that you are actually selling has more value than the trick. I'm like, oh, that, if you think about it, that's the very definition of advertising, right? As long as the thing that you're selling has more value than the trick, people don't care how you got their attention. So think about what could you do to get people's attention on LinkedIn using your design skills. Maybe it could be doing some sort of like, I asked AI to design this and I designed this. Which one do you think is better? It's very, very simple, right? And do you manufacture the results? Sure, who cares, right? As long as you are actually a good designer, right? Do you do you do you but chances are you won't need to manufacture those results. But do what other stunts can you do? Can you mock things up, extract like based on the news? Can you know think to yourself, what can I take? What like announcement, like LinkedIn? I am currently looking for a connection to US-based manufacturer, specifically with experience in blow molding and injection molding. How could you make this announcement that you're looking for this more interesting by doing something, right? by
Which
maybe
it
going
makes
to a
sense showing.
factory, a blow molding factory, and you know what I mean? Or give an example of what you want to build. Or you know, I had a client who was moving to the 10th floor because they got bigger. That's not really exciting news. And I said, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to throw a concert on the 10th floor before you move in there. Right? It's like everything's ripped apart and this and that, but we're going to throw a concert and with a celebrity, and all the money is going to go to like a local community cause. That's the news. That's what everybody covered. And and of course, because of that, it brought attention to the fact that they're moving to the 10th floor and because they're growing bigger. But nobody cares if you're going to the 10th floor and becoming bigger, right? But they care about the rock concert. Now people know both. And they also have a great impression of the brand. So that's what I mean by like, what can you do? Not what can you say, what can you do?
Okay, and since we only have 5 minutes to go over here, I just want to open up for people that
If
have
anyone,
Q&A. Yeah, if you don't want, if you have a question, if you don't mind, there's a react button. Raise your hand. I'll call on you. So this way people don't talk over each other, and then you'll unmute yourself to ask the questions. If you have a question for Justin, please raise your hand. Okay, I see Yoeli G raise his hand first. So unmute yourself. Go ahead uh, and
Yeah, hi,
spit.
thank you so much. Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes, we hear
Yes,
you.
my name is Yoli Gelb. I'm doing sales for a commercial painting company. I'd like to know if you can give me like a quick example how I can implement what you just spoke about, personal branding. Like how can I create something crazy, funny, whatever. Like I'm still not very active on social media. I do some status on WhatsApp or whatever. But if you can give me like a quick example on
What's your
how
company?
to painting, commercial painting,
Like painting
a
like walls
service company, yes.
and
Like
stuff like
painting
that?
big developments and buildings and yeah.
So it's a great example, right? Because relatively not exciting business, right? So even more show that in boring businesses, the more showmanship that you have to it, the more you're gonna, it's almost too easy to stand out. The question I have is whether or not your business should be the show person or you. D- Just because I'm talking about personal branding doesn't mean that it's always the right solution to the right thing, because it definitely takes a personality. You need to have a certain personality and willingness to just be out there and to be outgoing and do crazy things. I find that most people who have been through the Chabad system are like that because they're kind of used to shluchim. They're kind of used to walking up to people and saying, "Do you want to put this thing on?" Right? And so it's really it's for you. It's like taking that mentality and just applying it to instead of putting filling on people, I'm saying, hey, can I paint your building? You know? And it's like, what would you do? You would do anything to get somebody to put filling on, right? If they said, yeah, I'll put it on, but I want you to stand on your head, you'd stand on your head, right? I want you to, run around, bark like a chicken. You'd bark like a chicken. Like you do anything,
But
right?
by
So
the way,
it's
you
like,
just reminded me there was a bacher in Crown Heights, Rosh Hashanah. He was in Prospect Park, and there was a guy jogging. And he said, are you Jewish? And the guy said, yes. So the Bacher started jogging next to him. He blew the shofar for him while he was jogging. Just because we're so short on time. First of all, it sounds to me like you must be a big fan of Morgan and Morgan Marketing. Are they doing what you're describing with their crazy ads that they put up?
implicitly. Yeah,
Yeah,
implicitly.
that's
Carlos
right there.
and Aaron, they know what they're doing. Yes.
Right. So for everyone that's seen those ads for Morgan and Morgan, the law firm, which is just a boring law firm, and they have these ridiculous ads that catch everyone's attention. All right, I want to take one last
And
question.
then it makes sense because it's Chabad Bachram who are doing it.
Yes. All right, Elizabeth, I see you're raising your hand. You'll be the last question. Go ahead, unmute yourself and
I
ask your question.
I could stay if I don't know. It's fine.
All right,
People want.
but go ahead. So Elizabeth, I see you. You have a hand up. You know how to unmute. You could just click
Here I
unmute.
am.
Okay, there
Okay.
you are. Okay.
Hi, and thank you so much. It's a really helpful presentation. Um, the idea of personal branding is fascinating to me, and I haven't really stepped into it yet. I'd like to learn more about the subject, and I'm wondering who are besides P.T. Barnum, are there brand designers who are legendary currently? I'll look at Morgan and Morgan as well. But is there a book or a personality, somebody out there who's doing this right?
Uh, a lot of them are doing it right, but they're not talking about it. It's sort of a secret. They're claiming they're attributing their success to the tactics that they're selling, when in reality, it's the showmanship that's doing it. So you just have to begin to look, basically anyone that's popular or having success, peel the layers back and look at these 7 or 8 different points, and you'll begin to learn from experience. But another person from on a B2B level, besides P.T. Barnum, P.T. Barnum, by the way, in his autobiography, he has a book where he lost all his money, and then he got all his money back by going on tour around the world, giving a lecture called The Art of Making Money. And in that, he talks a lot about advertising, marketing, and stuff like that. And it's also, by the way, an example of personal branding. So really, P.T. Barnum is, but you can also learn it by studying, um, you know, publicity in general. Edward Bernays, um, and the great publicist of the 1920s, a guy named. So first, I just want to say I have a Stan Store. I have a whole course on this. I'm going to give you guys a discount. Just use the word if you want it. I know I'm not trying to sell anything, but if just you're interested, the code is Barnum, and it'll take a very, very steep off of my course on personal publicity. Um,
Thank
uh,
you.
it'll take
That's
like
great.
$200 off or whatever. But there's a guy, Harry Reichenbach, um, and he was a publicist in the 1920s. He basically invented Hollywood. And he wrote a really good autobiography called Phantom Fame, which you'll see a lot of the stunts and stuff that he would do in order to get attention. And you can see how sometimes he would do it for people, sometimes he would do it for movies or whatever. And you could begin to see a little bit more of like what I'm talking about. But also, if you look at
Would you say that social media is the, rather than doing a live event, would you say that personal branding can be done effectively on social media?
but a live event could be personal brand. In fact, I
Sure,
would
sure,
recommend
I
doing more live
understand.
events in the age of AI. Anything that shows that you're a real person is very,
Oh,
very important.
okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks a million.
And make sure
Okay,
you
and that
record it so that you can cut down the content.
so
Okay.
people were asking about a book. So what was the name of that book you just said? Fandom Fame?
So the books that I recommend are here are are the autobiography of P.T. Barnum, um, Phantom Fame, uh,
Phantom.
and a more sort of modern one, Why Does the Peddler Sing? And um, I should have this more. Uh, The Fall of Public Man, which I talked about earlier. And The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene will give you the basis for a lot of this.
Okay, this was great. Thank you very much.
You're
I know
welcome.
that this was just we were working on this for a few months. I'm happy we finally got this done. Um, just for all of you that are on, post a webinar. We will email you. He made Justin made a one pager, which I've been showing off and on the screen, which he actually prepared when we did the live event. That'll have the overview of the points he covered and some things we didn't have time to cover. I'll also send the links to these books and also to his class with the discount code for those that are interested. Uh, Stay tuned. February 17th will be our next webinar. on using how to use AI automation tools to grow your business. So stay tuned. Good to see all of you again.
Only use them for what you're good for, not for what you're bad at. That's my biggest advice about AI.
Basically, be authentic.
It's
Don't
not
let
about
it.
being authentic. It's that technology is an extension of yourself. So extend the good part of you and then hire people who do the bad stuff, the stuff that you're bad at, but are really good at it and are using AI to be even better at it. That's like a great world, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay.
All
Once
right.
again, thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Have a wonderful week. All the best.
No problem.